Okay, today I'm predicting the Cleveland Browns record prediction. So looking at their roster, Cleveland again has a very similar to roster to last year. Their roster is still very good despite their quarterback, Deshaun Watson. Really don't know how he's gonna do. He was not that good last year, and he was not, and ever since that suspension, he hasn't been that good. But the rest of the roster should be pretty good. The offensive line still looks really good as long as Nick Chubb, even though even if he doesn't return to form, Jerome Ford is a very good backup. Wide receiving core is pretty deep, and their defense still looks really good. Their defensive line looks great with Darius Smith and Myles Garrett. Linebackers are okay. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is okay. Their secondary is okay, but I expect a really good defense, pretty similar to last year for the Cleveland Browns. But you have your first game, the Cowboys versus the Browns. Cowboys, another team that is quite talented. This Cowboys could definitely challenge that Browns secondary. Dak Prescott's a really good quarterback. Um, but I expect Jerome Ford or Nick Chubb to run over that Cowboys defense, so I'm going to take the Browns in the first game. Then you have week 2 versus the Jaguars. Really, I could see this game going either way. Jaguars, even though they weren't great last year, near the end of last year, their team is not that bad. Jaguars has an okay defense. Their offense, Trevor can sometimes light it up. Browns are the more talented team. Their defense should do great. But it's on the road for the Browns, and for some reason the Browns defense doesn't play as well on the road, so I'm taking the Jaguars here. Then you have week 3 versus the Giants. Giants are still a rebuilding team. Giants defense may give Nick Chubb or Deshaun Watson some trouble, but Giants offense is completely ass. Browns defense should shut down that Giants offense easily, so I'm taking the Browns here. Then you have week 4 versus the Raiders. To me, this is an interesting game. I'm pretty high on the Raiders. I think the Raiders have a very good defense that can shut down Deshaun Watson and Nick Chubb and pretty much shut down that Browns offense in general. This one's going to be coming down to that Browns defense versus the Raiders offense. Um, Raiders, whoever they start, Minshew or Aiden O'Connell, they'll have to be ready for that Browns pass rush, and I think they will be ready, especially if Minshew is starting. This one's going to be a sloppy game, but I'm going to take the Raiders here. I like the Raiders defense, and I don't like the Browns on the road, so I'm taking the Raiders here. They have big home field advantage. Then week 5 versus the Commanders. Commanders similarly still rebuilding of a team. Their offense can be scary at times, but that Commanders defense is absolutely bad. Browns should win this game easily. Then week 6 versus the Eagles. Eagles are coming off a bye. They have home field advantage. Eagles are just as talented as the Browns are, even after that late last season collapse. Eagles, their defense wasn't really that great last year, but should be better this year. They still have guys like Darius Slay, Jalen Carter. So I expect that defense to do at least something, but it's the Eagles' offense. I think may give the Browns' defense some trouble. Jalen Hurts still definitely an option, and those two wide receivers I think won't be too much for the Browns, so I'm taking Eagles here. Then you have week 7 versus the Bengals. It is a divisional game, so really hard to predict, but Browns do usually play well versus the Bengals. Bengals, to me, their defense is still good, but not as great as it was a couple years ago. Joe Burrow may struggle with that pass rush, so I'm going to take the Browns here. Then you have week 8 versus the Ravens. Similarly, the Browns always steal a game away from the Ravens. And I expect that even though the Ravens just probably more talented, Lamar Jackson is the MVP. That Ravens defense is pretty good. I think the Browns will have one of their better games. I think they'll be able to slow down Lamar Jackson, so I'm taking the Browns here. Then you have Denver versus the Chargers. Not a huge fan of the Chargers, as long as I think the Browns can stop that LA run game. I think the Browns offense should get the job done, so I'm taking the Browns here. Then you have them versus they have a bye, and then you have them versus the Saints. Saints for me really aren't that anything special. They're kind of like the average team. Browns are coming off a bye, so that kind of negates the home field a little bit. Saints, their defense can cause problems and can cause confusion for Deshaun Watson or Nick Chubb. But the offensive line, Saints don't have the best pass rush, and that Saints offense really is not explosive enough, so I'm taking the Browns here. And you have week 12 versus the Steelers. Browns typically do struggle versus the Steelers, but it's the home field advantage on a very short week, and I expect that short week to have some fatigue. And I don't expect Russell Wilson or Justin Fields to do very good, so I'm taking the Browns here. Then you have week 13 versus the Broncos on Monday Night Football. That's a pretty long break for the Browns here, but Broncos really are not that good. Their defense, they shed guys like Justin Simmons. Their offense, they're starting whoever. They're going to struggle versus that Browns defense, so I'm taking the Browns here. Then we have Week 14 versus the Steelers. Like I said earlier, Steelers played the Browns well, and I don't expect a sweep from them. Okay, then you have the Steelers versus the Browns. Like I said earlier, Steelers do play the Browns pretty tough. So I don't expect the Browns to sweep the Steelers. The Steelers have a very tough defense, and their offense is just there. I'm gonna take the Steelers here. Then you have Week 15 versus the Chiefs. Browns have home field advantage. Chiefs are the defending Super Bowl champs, but Chiefs really, our offense outside of Kelsey is not that explosive. I expect that Browns defense to have a good day, and their offense should do just enough against that Chiefs defense. So I'm taking the Browns here. Week 16 versus the Bengals. I don't expect the Bengals to sweep the Browns, especially with the short week. I'm gonna take the Bengals here. I meant to say the Bengals. I have the Bengals winning. Week 17 versus the Dolphins. Dolphins don't play well in the end of the year, and the Browns have a big home field advantage being it cold up in Cleveland. Dolphins are a warm weather team. I expect the Browns defense to shut down the Dolphins offense. I'm going to take the Browns here. Then Week 18 versus the Ravens. I don't expect the Ravens to sweep the Browns. They're just too talented, so I'm taking the Ravens here. So in the end, the Browns going 11 and So in the end, the Browns going 11 and 6, 3-3 in the division, 8 and 0 at home, and 3 and 6 away.